Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Straight Out of Cape Town. Myself, Abdul Sayed, your host for tonight, and my co-host, Byron Height, and my co-founder of Straight Out of Cape Town, Kyle Bush, there in the background, doing all the most important stuff. And to all the viewers that have been waiting in the lobby to be part of this absolutely awesome show, well, we really welcome you here tonight, and thanks for having the patience for waiting in the background there till the show started. And tonight we absolutely have an awesome show lined up for you guys. We are, the whole show. Some of you knew who Shaheem Barmania was. Well, he passed away sadly a couple of days ago, and we're just dedicating the show to him. We're not going to talk about his life story because a good friend of mine has already covered that in a video, absolutely awesome video as well. You can go look up on YouTube and go and Google that. But tonight, whatever we're talking about is in remembrance and dedicated a tribute to an awesome person who left a fantastic legacy for motorsport, and I hope his legacy continues. So yeah, welcome to everybody once again. And tonight we have the tuners on board. And it's going to be an absolutely brilliant show. Lots of information, lots of value adding, and lots of questions. And please feel free to post your comments and ask questions because that's what it's about. And just before we get onto the show, there, on the 20th of February at 3:00, we are having our first Gymkhana at Killarney for the year. Hopefully, we have 6 more dates for the year as the rest of the year goes on. And for now, we call it a test session because of all the COVID rules and stuff like that. But prepare yourself for a live stream of the event on the 20th of February at 3:00 at Killarney. Okay, and this event, because of the amount of entries, we're currently pushing the 40 entry mark. We are forced to have a dual route course. That's going to be absolutely brilliant. So the guys have to do 2 runs on each course, and it's a bit taxing on your brain, but it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And I just want to say hello to Byron, my co-host there. Byron, how are you this evening?
I'm very well, thanks, Abdul, and I'm smiling from ear to ear here because the show is barely 3 minutes old, and we got so many comments already from before we started the show already. And I'm hoping tonight there's going to be some great questions, some great comments. Thanks to everybody so far for commenting. I see Tahir Lani says hashtag HP Racing, hashtag Pro Balance. Good vibes. So I think it's going to be a good show tonight, and of course a fitting a dedication as well to Shaheem.
Okay, so just to introduce the guest, before I introduce the guest, like I told you guys, we're having these 5 tuning houses, probably one of the top 5 tuning houses in Cape Town on the show tonight. And the most important aspect of tonight's show is that teamwork makes the dream work. And if we can learn to work together as a team and not in opposition to each other, I think as a community, as a province, as a city, as a country, we will absolutely move on and move forward. So the first guest I want to introduce you to is Jody van Schoor from JVS Tuning. Jody, good evening. Welcome to the show, Jody.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being on the show. I know you're a busy guy, and I see your car, the car you tune in the background there, the Golf Mark 1. Am I correct?
That's correct. That's mine.
Okay, cool. So welcome to the show. Nice to have you on the show. Tonight's going to be very interesting, so like I told you. And thanks for spending time here with us for tonight.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Secondly, we have Herman Manke. I remember him from GTI days, and used to own a tuning workshop called Mace. But now you've consequently changed to HAT or HAT. Should I say it that way, Herman? Welcome to our show. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Yeah. I've changed to HAT Dynamics. It's Herman's Auto Training and Herman's Auto Tuning. So because I left Mace about 2 years ago, I went overseas for a bit and then came back, and I had to start under a different name with COVID. There was no more traveling. So I've started another shop under that banner.
Okay, and you're still based in the southern suburbs in Tokai, am I correct?
Yeah, still in Tokai in the southern suburbs, yeah.
Perfect. And Jody, you are based in?
We are in Stickland Industrial, in Northern.
Okay, under JVS tuning.
That's correct.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. Okay, next up we have another guest there. Is Saki around there? Izak van Zyl needs no introduction. We just call him sideways Saki. Hoe gaan het met jou, Saki?
Gaan goed, dankie. Daai kant.
Lekker, geen klagtes nie man. Hy is die meeste Afrikaans wat ek kan praat, jong.
That's fine.
You obviously from Dynotech. I know you from Gymkhana. I mean, that's where else we met there, and we kind of heated up immediately because you were just a good guy, cool guy. We just heated along. There was no issues. So welcome to our show, Saki. And I know you have a lot of knowledge. All of you have lots and lots of knowledge to share tonight. So you from Dynotech in Brackenfell, am I correct?
That's right, yeah, in Brackenfell, also northern suburbs as well.
Okay, cool. So you guys can make notes of this because you need your cars to be tuned. There's a lot of places you guys can go to the northern and southern suburbs as well. And then we also have Zanier Zeeline from Zeeline. Welcome to our show, Zanier. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to you.
Wa alaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Nice. Thanks for being on the show tonight.
Alhamdulillah, man.
Okay,
What can you say?
Yeah, what can I say? You based in Athlone, am I correct?
That's correct. Central suburbs.
Okay, so you guys got this. There's a good tuning house everywhere.
Yeah.
So thanks for being on the show tonight, Zanier, and I know we're going to learn lots from you as well. And then I'm not sure if Seraaj is on already. Kyle, do we have Seraaj on yet? He said he'll be at 8:05 at 7 minutes past. Okay, he's not in the lobby yet, but when Seraaj does come
No, he's not in the lobby
yet. Okay, he'll be in the lobby soon because he wasn't feeling too well. I think I think he blew a turbo actually, if I'm not mistaken. So he doesn't sound too well, but he's going to be on the show just to say hello anyway. Okay, guys. So like I said, tonight's show is dedicated in tribute of Shaheem that used to own the green Lumina suspect. And I'm going to start with Herman because Herman was kind of one of the people that was instrumental in taking that Lumina from an average car to a very fast car. Herman, talk just a little bit, very shortly about that green Lumina that you tuned.
Yeah, I got involved with it a couple of years ago. Shaheen came to me and said he wanted some help with tuning, and I ended up starting to drive it while testing, and that's how I ended up driving it. He was an amazing man, really. He was super kind. He was a gentle guy, and I've never seen him. I'm sure he got upset with some people, but I've never seen him upset. We blew up a lot of stuff, gearboxes, engines. We broke a heap of stuff, and not once did he ever. Why? How? What? He's just like, right. What can we do to not happen again? Let's move forward. And he was a wonderful guy. He was amazing to work with, and it wasn't the car that I charged anything for. It was we became really good friends, and it was quite a close team up until about 2 years ago. Before I went overseas, I was driving and tuning. A lot of help from Seraaj when we switched over to Haltech, because up until that point I'd never worked on a Haltech. So to get us up to speed super fast, Seraaj, he came on board, and he's amazing with the Haltech. So he got us up to speed super fast, and that's how the bakkie progressed. It just went from event to event. And there's my brother, Gary, how's it? And we went from event to event, and we just got stronger and stronger. And Shaheen was always one of those. He's not a bragging guy. He was never. We are the fastest, or we're gonna be the fastest. He was always amongst the best. Was his slogan. He's got a big poster up in his workshop. He's like, if not the best, amongst the best. And that was him. He was a humble guy, always trying to push the sport forward. And he's gonna be sorely missed. I'm not sure what they're gonna do with the bakkie now. If they're gonna run it still. I know his sons maybe had plans to drive it. For the last 2 years, I was only involved now this year again. Before lockdown, when I came back from overseas, Shaheen asked me to be involved again because Ralph, who was driving it while I was overseas, Ralph Kumbia from Motown, he's got his own car, so he was trying to split himself between two cars. And Seraaj has got a huge amount of customers. He's got to help at the track. So Shaheen said, look, will I come back and help again? It wasn't, everyone politics, they'll throw it around and say, Shaheen got tired of this one or that one. But it was nothing the case. He wanted everyone to work together. And that was, so the bakkie, we tested it previously a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, in between when lockdown just came up or lifted. And we had a bearing problem. And the bakkie, as it stands now, I spoke to him. I was messaging him the day before he passed on the Wednesday. We were messaging him, and he said can't talk. He's on a ventilator, but he'll call me when he gets out because we need to test the bakkie and get it going. But sadly, he never made it.
All I can say, may his soul rest in peace. Condolences to the family and all the people that are suffering from this pandemic that's been floating around. And you know what? We can't change the past, but we can definitely change the future. So hopefully we've learned a lesson that, we should be working together as the human race. So getting back into some interesting stuff here, Herman, thank you for that insight. I want to start off with Jody. Jody, how did you start in this? Well, this question is for everybody. So just very shortly and briefly, how did you actually get into tuning?
Well, I think like many of us, it all started on our own cars. So in my yard, or in the garage rather, I fitted a version 5 GoTech to my car, and I started messing with it. And eventually I didn't know how to do it. So I got it booked in at Izak. This was many years ago. And he sorted it out for me. And then we kind of saw what he was doing and how he did it. And I asked him for advice. And a lot of other guys asked for advice on what air fuel ratios to run and those things. And it all started from there. And then, later we progressed to a better management system, and we started off on our own, and I started booking dyno sessions at Izak's place as well, and it all started from there. Then it becomes word of mouth, and you start doing your friends' cars, and that's how it progresses.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. That's a good story, because I know Izak for a while now, and that type of teamwork and camaraderie is absolutely brilliant. I mean, you learned from him. That's his business. Yeah. You learned from him. He was willing to teach you, and you could use his dyno as well. And I commend you guys for that type of relationship that you guys actually have. Okay, so let's go on to Byron. Do you have anything in the background you want to talk about? Any comments you want to just bring up there or something?
Well, just see a few over here from Tahir Lani, of course, Mr. Zeeline Performance himself. You got this, he says over there as well. So some shout outs over there. I see here from Nuzea Paulsa, I'm Zahir's child. So there we go. Some good shout outs over there. Saying also Team Zeeline as well. So putting it all out there, and as well about some great comments here as well for Shaheen as well. And I see that it was Mario Isao that said a gentle soul.
Absolutely. I want to tell you a quick story about that. I don't know him personally. I didn't know him personally, but one thing stuck out for me. I was at Drags one day, and it was our afternoon prayer, the one at 1 o'clock. And obviously it's better to pray together. So I was looking for a place to pray, and I saw over at the truck, Herman will know the truck I'm talking about, where all the goodies are in. And I saw there was a place to pray, and I went over, and there was a place to make ablution and to pray, and we prayed. And then when the prayer was finished, there was a guy standing next to me. I shook his hand. This is pre-COVID. Obviously, I wouldn't do it during COVID. And I shook his hand, and I introduced myself. And then I said, well, my name is Abdul. And he said, well, my name is Shaheem. And then I realized he was actually the guy, who runs the team. And then he said, well, why don't you come over for lunch? And that's the memory that stuck in my brain. I don't know this man from a bar of soap. And that was the good memory that stuck in my brain for Shaheen. And you know what? That's what was staying in our brains, all the good memories and the positive stuff. Okay, so Jody, let's go on to Herman. Herman, how did you actually start tuning?
It's pretty much the same as everybody. There's nowhere to go and learn to tune. There's no training school. You can go online now. There's HP Academy and all of these things that you can go on. But back then there was nothing. So you blow your car up yourself a heap of times until you don't anymore. Then you try your friend's car and you blow his one up a couple of times, and so you go forward, But years ago, I spent a lot of time with Corsi Swanepoel. We were really good friends. We built his first 2-liter 16-valve Corsa. We built those years. I helped him at his dad's old workshop. And I used to hang about the dyno when he was working at Steve's Auto Clinic first, and then when he opened his shop, and you just hang about. And you start learning, and I was involved with cars from when I left school. I worked at Kalani at Onashi Auto Development. So I always went to Jess Huggett with a dyno, and I watched what he was doing, and I was always interested in it. And then all you've got to do is one day you just got to bite the bullet, and you kind of got to buy a dyno, and you just start doing it really. But you need help from other tuners. I think me and Kosi and Izak, we speak often. The tuners, everyone thinks they're all apart. You'll get a guy that phones Izak and says, I broke my car. Maybe you. And Izak says, yeah, I spoke to him this morning. And you've got to share the knowledge because we don't know everything, and everything is self-learned. You'll find tonight there'll be stuff that we'll say on here that's self-learned. And someone will go on the internet somewhere and they will find and they'll say, no, you were wrong there. And you're like, well, thanks for helping us, but we don't know everything. And so you go as the years go on, you get better and better. So there's a young guy named Matt. He's 19 years old now, and he's just come to help me now on the dyno to learn. And all the guys that help me on the dyno, I train them in. So Dwayne at Mason Epping, he was a guy that worked for me. He's doing that now. That was a long comment. I couldn't read that one.
Leave it to Byron. Leave it to Byron.
Get the knowledge and let them go on.
I'll take care of this.
Hey?
That's fine. Go on, Herman. Go on.
Okay. So yeah, you
please carry on there, Herman.
You got to share the knowledge between, and I think that's what the public doesn't understand, that actually Jason from RBT, I've spoken to him a lot as well. I had a perfect power the other day and I had no clue how it worked. I phoned him and the guys bring it to me and they think maybe for whatever reason I'm going to do a better job or he's going to do a better job. And at the end of the day we share the knowledge and we help each other. You have to. So the thing is to have a passion for it and read as much as you can and just share the knowledge around. But the way to start is just start. You just dive in and go, or go and help out through a workshop.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later on how, as a newbie, you want to get into the industry. Maybe you guys can give him some advice. I believe Seraaj is in the lobby there. I don't know if he sorted his turbo out or he sorted out his head gasket. Seraaj,
Evening, guys.
How are you?
Sorry, ran a little late, as usual, but I'm here.
I don't understand this. You drive the fastest Supra in Cape Town or South Africa and you're still late. That doesn't make sense to me at all. You need to have that car.
I had to walk here. I walked around the corner to Alita's.
That is the problem.
Simply Shad said Seraaj he's feeding the birds quickly. That was Shad's explanation for that. That's always it's a very
Premier charge and a
thoughtful
lead.
thing to do there.
Charge and my lead.
Yeah, Seraaj, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. We just have a wealth of knowledge on the show tonight here. So we're just going to go to the next guest, Zanier from Zeeline. Zanier, you run a successful tuning shop in Central Athlone, call it that. And how did you actually start?
Same way as Jody said. We started on our own cars. Scratch around, I started with GoTech. But I had a little bit of help from Jalil, Infinity Performance. So I would help him on the dyno and stuff like that. And we picked up, and still to today, me and Jalil's extremely good friends, and we help out each other a lot. So yeah, like Herman says, pass the knowledge on, and we'll learn from each other. All tuners are like, we need to share. Me and Seraaj speak a lot as well.
That's brilliant. So and I think the camaraderie and the teamwork between you guys and the vibe is absolutely electrifying. And I think a lot of the challenges come in when the guys come to the track and the one car was tuned by A and the other car was tuned by B and the other car was tuned by C. And that's where the disciples are having an issue, not the tuners. And that's always quite an interesting issue. But I'm not going to go into that tonight. That's for another time and another issue and another story. Okay, so we've done Seraaj, we've done Zanier, I finished Saki. So we've kind of asked you guys all the same question. Byron, do you have anything to add to the comments there in the meantime?
I just see some comments have come through here. PC Ascali says, don't let this distract you. from the fact that Hector is going to be running 3 Honda Civics with spoon engines, and on top of that, he just went into Harry's and bought 3 T66 turbos with NOS.
Okay, who's going to answer that comment? I got no clue what the guy's talking about.
You guys don't watch Fast and Furious?
TV.
That was,
Yes. Yeah,
that was before you were out, Bill.
I don't drive a Honda, I drive a Toyota, so talk about Toyotas, I'll be okay. Okay, let's get into, tuning kind of, when I grew up, there was nothing like a management system. There wasn't even an electronic distributor. Trust me, it was points and condenser. Right, and then you could ignition timing, you could advance and retard. Now, when I started racing, it was side drafts. That's the only thing I knew was 40s and 45s, and we also had 48s in those days. So I remember on the carbs you could the choke tubes, the airs, and the mains you could change. That's about it that you could do on the carburetors. I don't know if I'm talking am I talking the right thing here, but it's kind of what I knew about carburetors. So how has it evolved? From, I don't know if you guys ever, I know some of the older guys, like, I won't mention names, but you guys know who you are. You obviously also started off with carburetors. Just quickly, briefly, in all of you, the difference between side drafts, which is like kind of good in those days, compared to management systems nowadays with throttles. Just talk a little bit about 1 or 2 disadvantages and advantages. Let's start off with Jody. I'm not sure if he was born when carbs were around. I'm not sure actually, but you probably know about it.
My first golf I bought was at an 1800 City Sport, and it was carbureted. The first thing I did was take the carb off and put a management system on it. So I don't have much knowledge with carbs, but with management systems, I guess you can tune it a lot better. It's more finer, I guess. Carbs, I guess, I don't have much knowledge about it.
Okay, that's good, because that is actually good, because you would have become frustrated with carburetors, trust me. When you can't get the car to start because the 2 siders are not in sync. But anyhow, that's for another time. Let's go to Herman. Herman, you definitely know about carburetors. You know about carburetors as well. The difference between the two.
I think it's very simple. Obviously a carburetor, it's the engine is pulling the fuel in. It's creating a vacuum through the venturi of the carburetor, and it pulls the air into the engine. But the amount of air is dictated by small little holes and bleed-offs, which you can't change all the time. If you've got, the long and the short is, a carburetor and a management system, they don't make more power than the other one. It's got to do with the intake length, the choke size, in other words, so you've got pulse lengths in the intake. So if you were to take a side draft car, and you were to get it, that your mixture is perfect, you've got sort of a 12-9 on an air fuel ratio, full throttle through the run. If you were to take that, the fuel out of them, put fuel injectors in, and you use the carburetor with fuel injectors on the other side, so you use the carburetors as throttles, if you want to call it that, you would make exactly the same power. So it's just the way of getting fuel into the engine. And the management system allows us to tune a set of fans in a car where it's not making power down at 2,000 RPM. We can make it smoother there. We can make it lighter on fuel. So it makes it more tunable. Going from carburetors to throttle bodies, if you put exactly the same size on, power is not going to change. But throttle bodies allow you to make longer intakes and bigger ram tubes and everything, and you can run injectors on the outside of the throttle body. You can put them close to the port. So you can change, that's the way you're going to change power. So it just makes it more tunable. But yeah, it's not always an outright power thing. It's more about drivability and fuel economy. Okay, that's a brilliant insight into carburetors compared to management systems. Okay, let's go to Zahir.
I used to play with carbs as well.
Okay.
No, I'm here.
Okay, cool.
So I used to play with carbs, side drafts. I still tune side drafts today, so.
Okay. But parts are kind of getting scarcer and scarcer, am I right?
Extremely scarce. And you have to buy in second-hand carbs to get parts.
Yeah. So kind of, if I can safely say that a better route would be to go management, because of availability of parts probably and cost effectiveness. Am I correct?
And smoother driving, yes.
Okay, cool. So that is another different insight to that. Let's go to Saki. Saki, same question.
Yeah, on the carbs, it's you're limited to the fuel ratio. You've only got the jets. You can't set it with say the fueling versus RPM. So that makes it a lot easier with the management systems. You can take away fuel at the bottom, make sure that it's the right amount of fuel right through the range. Where on a side drive you must make sure you've got enough fuel on your highest say torque point, and then from there you must just live with the fuel above that and below that.
Okay. So from what I'm gathering so far is management system much more efficient. In not necessarily more power or more torque, but efficiency absolutely, and drivability definitely a plus factor. Seraaj, I mean we kind of the same age, so we definitely know about carburetors as well.
Oh,
Just
you're
your
old.
I'm not old. Oh my word! We're not gonna go there. Just your opinion on that as well.
Look, with carburetors, I think I was spoiled because I started very early on high school. We were doing carbs already. And they were actually, we got a lot of help from, I never hear, Rolly Stanton played a big role in our lives back then. He always
He's
had
still
time
alive.
for us.
He's still alive. He's still around.
And yes,
Yeah.
no, he's still around. And obviously the Ali brothers, all of them. So we actually took pride. We spent a lot of time on the sidewalk. But once you get introduced to a low dyno, you kind of know, I can't tune it half throttle or quarter throttle, throw it off, you know. But
Yeah.
full throttle is full throttle, they're the same way.
Right. Seraaj, what I didn't ask you in the beginning is how did you start in getting into tuning?
I think we were racing when we were at Tech already. And then a buddy of mine, his father actually had Mertech. They had a dyno back then already.
Okay.
So we started scratching around. Paul Casca bought a dyno a very long time ago. And I think once they gave me intro to that, we never really looked back to anything else.
So
We
it's
were
kind
always
of
competitive on the road, doing field,
yeah,
Killarney, wherever we were there.
amazing. And you know what? We would like to see more people. People think that racing is just about driving, and it's not. Because what's the issue? You have the best race driver, but there's no one to tune the cars. You're gonna have a serious problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
and look, it's easy now. Like just we were laughing about it. Just 2 weeks ago, I phoned Izak. I'm busy here with a super gearbox. I'm supposed to know this, but I've got no idea how it works. He laughed. He sent me a map. 10 minutes later, the car was driving finished.
Exactly.
It just makes it much easier now that we've got teamwork and you can chit and chat. I'm always phoning Herman. I'm phoning everybody. I'm somebody you go to the expert. So if Zahir is good with a Mazda, why must I struggle? I can phone him. What do we do there? Finish.
Exactly. And that's the kind of the idea that must be implemented in our communities as well. Byron, any update for us there?
I have a question over here from TPDZ, and it's a question to all tuners. How much kilowatts does the K&N cone filter add?
Okay, don't answer the question yet because I'm gonna come to that, Byron, but we're not gonna answer the question now. But coming to tuning, so let's say we're talking about engine tuning now. There's also suspension tuning. That's a different topic, a different program. We can talk another 5 hours about suspension tuning. Let's go back just into tuning the engine. So the engine, basically, my mind tells me that tuning revolves around intake, exhaust, maybe turbo, forced induction. Obviously, if not forced induction, that's NA, fuel management, and ignition. Am I kind of covering it in a very broad sense there, guys?
Sounds about right.
Okay. So let's talk about the intake.
Correct.
So maybe same question. All of you can talk about it at the same time. It doesn't matter. Just describe to the viewers out there what is the intake and why is it important and how can it be tuned just specifically the intake of a car. So let's start off with Jody again because he's the eldest.
Well, there's two parts to the intake. You always got the intake manifold, then you've got the induction side. So the intake manifold is where your car would bolt onto, or your throttles, or the throttle body. So you can tune the actual torque curve according to the length of that. And likewise, to on the induction side, your induction pipe length also determines your torque curve. So you can move the power around slightly with the lengths of all these things. So that's broadly what the intake is about. And obviously, you've got the intake valves, which are a different part of that.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, so the intake, in my understanding, is well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not the expert here. Herman, let's go to you.
Look, the thing with an engine, in the words of Peter de Wet from Dastic, an engine needs three things: compression, fuel, spark, and then it will run. So the more air you can get in, the more power you'll make. That's why the bigger the piston, in other words, the bigger the capacity of the engine, the more air you have to produce power. The fuel just needs to be mixed with the air in a specific ratio, and you need to light it at a specific time. So that's the 10, 20, 30 degrees ignition timing that you run. So you light it at a specific time. The fuel is in a specific air-fuel ratio in 12.9 parts air, 1 part fuel. At full throttle, 13, or your your cruising throttle is like 14.5, parts air, 1 part fuel. Now, everything in power of the engine has got nothing to do with the fuel, hence why I said earlier the management system doesn't play a part. You just need to add the fuel in the right amount so that you can make the mixture correct to make the most power out of that fuel. It's all about how much air can you get into the engine. So that's why the question earlier with a cone filter is if you've got any restriction on the intake, so like you've got an air box and it's got a little pipe that runs into the fender, and that's on the manufacturer's cars. What they do is, if you buy a standard car, a lot of the development goes into making the induction quiet, so that when my wife gets in the car and goes down to the shop, she doesn't say something fell off the front of the engine, because when I put my foot down, it goes honk at me. So, and if you think of a side draft car, when you drop the throttle and it barks at you out the intake, the manufacturers have to silence that so that you don't hear it, and that causes restrictions. So that's why you can do intake induction changes and gain power, but generally with more power comes more noise. And so also they put standard air filters on to stop any dust particles, anything coming into the engine, the finest dust, and that restricts the air as well. So a K&N filter, if you were to put that on, in my opinion, the other tuners can also speak, but if whenever I've changed the K&N filter into a car, it's only worth sort of 1-2 kilowatts, unless you've doubled the power of the engine and you're still using the standard air box, then it might be too small. That's why if you look at these big V8 engines, they've got 2 air boxes with 2 air filters so that they can get more air into the engine. And that's what Jody was talking about pulse lengths on the intake. If you make it longer, you can create more torque. If you go shorter, sometimes even longer still makes more kilowatt and not torque. You actually don't know where you are with that. That's one of those like trial and error things. That's why you rather buy an intake that's been developed on a flow bench somewhere by Block.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense actually. Byron, there's a million comments. Maybe you should ask the rest of the tuners. So there's some good questions that have come through there about, I don't know, stacks, filters, and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's all around cone filters and of course stack induction. So first of all, you said I think it was Tagilani again. They said 2021 we use cold air stack inductions, and then Simply Shut said, and don't forget EGT. Ashraf Ali says 4-cylinder Toyota drivers use those filters. What can I say? 4-cylinder Toyota drivers, there's a few of us around here.
That's what you and I do.
Okay, let's just
and
know.
Also with that, Abdul, just quickly, and of course, Simply Shuts these, because there's Ashraf says stack induction. He says that it's just a long pipe on the intake, and Simply Shut says, that's my question. Do velocity stacks work as well as people think? So there's a lot to actually chew on here as far as that is concerned.
Can I say something about a velocity stack?
Okay.
Interesting thing. I know I've spoken already, and I must let other people talk. But there's a Riyadh from Work Racing, Buni. He's a guy that works a lot on Hondas, and he came to my dyno a while ago, and he said to me, "No, a velocity stack, it's going to make 8 to 10 kilowatts." And I said to him, "You must be crazy. Like, you take the short, it had a short intake on it, but okay, we had a very short intake on this Honda. It was a B20 VTEC. And out the intake, we had a sort of just a 90-degree bend and air filter, and we tuned it like that, full throttle, perfect timing, perfect fueling. And that velocity stack, when it's not the velocity, not the shape of the cone on the end, it's the length of the induction pipe. And when they stick it through the headlight on the Honda, if you go from a short little one and you come out the headlight and you add sort of 600 mils to the intake pipe, I've seen on most B20s with cams that is 8 to 10 kilowatts. It is absolutely insane. The whole fueling mixture changes. And that's why the guys are like velocity stacks. But that doesn't mean that if you put it onto a VVL or if you put it onto a Golf 16 valve or you put it, it works on that engine, that length. You know, some engines, they need to be shorter, some longer. But yes, velocity stack, absolutely on a Honda, amazing.
Okay, cool. So it's specific to specific cars and engines. Kyle, you have a video? Okay, this looks like it's the Lumina. Am I right, Herman?
I didn't know we can talk over. Yeah, this is one of the runs. I didn't have too much in-car footage. This is one of the runs on the Lumina that we did years ago. This was about a 9.4, I think. So I'll let you watch it first.
Yo, you're trying to get your hand up there and pull the chute still.
Yeah, you need to, otherwise you don't stop. We've been into the catch fence already. But as you can see,
I know about the time when you hit the wall.
Yeah, we went through the catch fences. Yeah, we had a couple of problems. A little bit of problems made, and we went through the catch nets. Yeah.
Okay, Saki, that question about the stack filters and stuff. Just, I don't know, your knowledge on that. Just take us through a little bit what you know about that stuff.
I think it's the same as Herman said. On some of the cars, if the intake length suits the motor and suits the mods on it, it will definitely work. I've tried on some of the VPLs and cars I've had there, where it makes no difference at all. It's exactly the same power as with the short intake. And it's different work done to the motor. It works again. So you have to try it on the dyno and see which one works better for your engine.
Okay, I think that answers the question that the guys were actually talking about. Let's go to Zahir. Zahir, any insight on what we're talking about there?
On the stacks and stuff, yes. Like Zaki said, it all depends what's done to the motor. We've seen increase in torque, all difference on the length and how much bends are in the stack, or total length, if it's out the bump or out the headlight. Personally, I prefer it out the headlight. On the VVL, we've seen better gains out there and the torque increase.
Okay. Seraaj, just to wrap up that question about the intake and the stack filters and all that stuff, just give us an overview there quickly before we move on to the next segment.
I think the only big issue that affects all of us is you book a car in a Saturday morning, maybe a close customer, you're going to play around with lengths and stuff. And maybe 5 hours later, you got your 8 kilowatts. You know, it becomes impractical to spend that on all the cars. So it helps if the guys is a VVL click, they know what more or less works, and you start there. But each car is different, so
okay,
that's the main thing.
Okay, so what I can gauge from this is, guys, it's car specific. It's not one word for everything. Okay. So yes, people are talking a lot about.
The main takeaway is I see guys talking about removing bumpers and this and that. The main takeaway is the more air you can get in. So yes, if you're not sucking hot air from the engine bay, you can take a headlight out and put the air into it. The engine is going to make more power. But you're going to mess around with the aerodynamics of the car, which means it's like sticking your hand out the window and it's going to hold the car back. So it swings and roundabouts. You need to, you might gain 2 kilowatts, but you might lose 2 Ks an hour. So it's depending on what you do, with bumpers off and things like that. you need the car to be streamlined and be able to make power. And that's why trying to duct the air into your intake to try and shut off, put little plates in to keep the hot air away, and duct the air in on each car to try and keep it nice and cold so the air is dense. You'll make good power. And then I saw a comment here, definitely removing the rear bumper doesn't increase the power.
You know what? I've seen everything, all the comments here, and they're all talking about kilowatts. I'm kind of the guy that looks at torque as well, because you can rev a car, very high, have huge amount of kilowatts, but if you have no torque, nothing's going to happen. It's like, there's just nothing that's happening. So maybe the next question is, Byron, do you have any, there's a million comments, Byron. Can you just choose a couple before we move on, Byron, please?
I think it's in so many different areas, and I know we spoke earlier on when a lot of the guys talked about getting into tuning and eventually getting their first dyno and so on. But I see here Shaheem Saban asks, how safe is a dyno for your engines? Just staying with the engines now. Do any of the tuners still road tune? This is before we go on to talk and maybe also other forms of tuning.
Okay, let's start with Jody. That's a good question.
Well, look, there's the dyno, your engine's going to see the most load it will ever see. So whether you're going to tune it on the road of the dyno, I think it's going to be quite similar in terms of load bearing. You might have a more precise tune on the dyno, but I also recheck it. I do a few rounds around the block to make sure it drives well, it drives smooth. So you got to do some, you've got to confirm your dyno tune after you've tuned it on the road to make sure that it runs well and it can idle and it can pull away properly and it doesn't stall out when you stop, those type of things. So, but in terms of, engines braking, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a mechanical issue if an engine does fail on the dyno. So bearings are common, so oil pressure. But in terms of it braking because of the tune, it's very slim that might happen. Because like I said, that on the dyno, your engine's going to see the most load it can.
Okay. Herman?
Yeah.
Same thing.
So do I think dynos are bad engines?
Excuse me?
What was the question? Sorry, I was listening.
How safe are dynos for your car's engine?
Well, my thoughts are, as long as you've got a big enough fan and you can keep the water temperature down, in other words, you're not getting as much air. So its temperature is a big problem on a dyno. But other than that, you can't drive it any harder. If you put your foot flat on the road and it hits the rev limiter, I can't do any more than that. We put it into 3rd or 4th gear. We put our foot flat. The run lasts 8 seconds. There's no gear changes. There's nothing. You put it into a gear, get to 1,500 RPM or wherever you want to start, and you put your foot flat. It just pulls an inertia run through, and then it kicks out a power number. You can use a load dyno, which is a bit more load on the engine, but like when you're driving to Joburg with the trailer on, you've got half throttle for 14 hours, or whatever, towing a trailer to Joburg. On the dyno, you're there for, if we're spending an hour or whatever, and then most of the time the engine is off because we're busy scratching our head trying to think what intake we must put on. So it's no, the dyno doesn't break the car. Everyone thinks dynos break cars because they do break on the dyno because generally the engine coming to a dyno is a newly built engine that someone just put together and they want a startup running map on it, and when it runs a bearing it was a clearance issue or something, because I can give you my car and a full tank of petrol and I'll tell you go run a bearing. You can't do it. It's not something that the dyno operator can do, run a bearing. Maybe melt a piston, but we can't run a bearing. So so no, I don't think it's dangerous. But as Jody said, you need to pick certain cars on the road. If it's outright power you're looking for, you can take it straight off the dyno. For a drag car, straight off the dyno to the racetrack. It will be max power there. The mixture is right. The only thing that most people don't do is put air intake temperature sensors on. And that is just to go back to your open intakes. The guys must be very careful because on the dyno, you're sucking 35-degree air or 40-degree air. Your intake is hot. It's got heat soak in it, and you tune the mixture perfect there. When you go on the road and you've got 8-degree air one night coming in on a winter evening, that mixture goes from a correct mixture to a super lean mixture because there's no air temperature correction on it. And everyone goes, you only need it on a turbo car, but it's definitely not the case. The other thing is on the dyno, we've got a little fan in front blowing. When you're doing 200 k's an hour ramming air down its throat, the mixture is going to be leaner. So in those kinds of cars, you must do a road tune to check that the mixture is correct, that it doesn't go too lean. Or you need a pressure sensor in the airbox to measure the air pressure that's gone up, and you maybe need an air temperature sensor to trim the fueling richer as the air gets cooler. But a dyno, it shouldn't break the car.
Okay. I'm okay. You know what? There's so much information here. I think we can have the show over 5 weeks and we still won't be able to cover all the information. Let me go to the next thing about tuning here quickly. Byron, I don't know where to start with you, Byron. You have like 30,000 comments there. You're gonna.
It is actually. I just see Bevan Peterson said over here, if it breaks on the dyno, then it wasn't built properly. I think that's a good opinion over there from him. I think a few people nodding in agreement.
There's another important aspect. They asked us, does a dyno break cars? Now, me on the dyno, I've already got a reputation for turning people away because I'm worried, is your car going to damage my dyno shop? Because your car needs to be right as well.
It works both ways.
Yeah, sometimes you strap a car down, you must strap it off. Just take this thing for alignment or something. So, it works both ways. And I think we're going to the road. The last 10 years, tuning has changed a lot. Management has improved. It's become a really fine art when it comes to management looking after your tune. So it's changed a lot, but yeah, dynos don't break cars.
Okay.
Cars might be not dyno ready when it gets there, but yeah, it takes talent to break a car on the dyno.
Right.
Maybe the other tuners want to say, what's your 3 biggest breaks? What's your 3 biggest blow-ups or breaks on a dyno you've had? Because I've had a couple.
Zahir, let us hear from you.
He's not here anymore, I think.
Oh, yeah. You ran away. Okay.
Maybe come back now.
Saki?
Yes.
Your biggest break on the dyno.
I don't know. I've broken a couple of gearboxes. Obviously with high-powered cars. And then, like Seraaj said now, the cars must be dyno ready. I've had cars in a dyno where you drive this thing and it drive around the block, it feels alright, put it in a dyno, and you hear, while you're busy, you hear this gearbox is starting to whine. But you don't know the cars, you don't know what's going on. And eventually it just gets louder and louder and louder, and you stop and check, there's no gearbox at all in the car. And that's stuff that happens where they built the car, but nothing was checked, and that's not the tuner's problem, if you call it that. The customer must make sure the car is right when it comes to you. Or at least all the
tuning. Exactly.
Yeah. Must they have oil. I've had cars come to me and I asked the guys, they drove the car to me, and I asked the guys, did you check your oil? Yeah, I checked it this morning. And you add a liter or liter and a half of oil, and there's water's running out of the back. But they just checked it this morning. But it can't be. So it makes it difficult. It's not always the tuning that it's a problem. It's sometimes the car doesn't come to you ready for a dyno, ready for just a tune.
Correct. Okay, Carl, I think we're ready for another video there quickly. Bakkie, just a quick question. Can that car drive straight?
It's difficult. It takes talent to keep it straight.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. Okay, guys. Byron, do you have any comments? We have to get through that very quickly.
I think, Abdul, I know you've actually wanted to move on from the horsepower side to talk, and also as well, we were talking about suspension earlier on. So maybe not comments. Let's maybe actually talk about having all that power and how useful is it if you don't have the right suspension, right tires, everything. Because what happens, power delivery is one thing, but now placement is the whole thing. That's my intriguing area that I want to go into.
Okay, let's just put it on hold for now. I want to just touch on, we did intakes earlier on, so maybe let's start with Saki. Saki, maybe you can give us some insight to exhausts.
Exhaust to me, the branches. It's obviously you'll have to get the lengths, everything right. It also helps with getting exhaust fumes out that are just forced in on the intake side. So to getting the right size exhaust to get a decent power curve, it takes a lot of development around that, and sometimes you don't always need a big exhaust. But the guys, I know a lot of guys ask me, will an exhaust box make it lose power or add power to it? To me, a free flow box, yes, it will add power, but changing a box size or something or anything will just make it louder or won't lose any power. If you got the same size box, and you change it to something else. But you need to get, same as the intake, you need to get the right lengths and the right sizes to make it work properly with the mods you've got on the motor.
Okay. So is there always a contentious issue of 4x2x1 or 4x1? Maybe Herman, just enlighten us a little bit about that, maybe.
Again, that's naturally aspirated cars, which are very in the road scene nowadays. It's few and far between where you don't have a car that someone has developed a downpipe for. So, for example, Bro Speed or maybe the guys like Jody and them, they've developed a downpipe for the specific Golfs and things. And those downpipes, they have the right back pressure and everything to make the most power. To start developing your own branch for naturally aspirated, you're probably going to go a long way backwards before you go forwards. So my suggestion is just buy some brand name thing that people have worked out on a dyno. As far as turbocharging goes, yes, the bigger is better because the turbo creates the back pressure, the turbo creates the boost, and after that, you must just get it out so that it doesn't burn your car or your feet, so as big as possible and out the side of the car. And that will make the most power, to not restrict the exhaust. Naturally aspirated, very, very, we've even picked up kilowatt by going smaller on the front section. You put what they used to call a torque tube in, and then it actually picks up kilowatt as well. And because the smaller the pipe, the faster the airspeed. The bigger the pipe, it's like a wide river, it moves slowly. And when it narrows, that's why a carburetor's got a Venturion. It's to speed the air up. So if you speed it up and slow it down in the right place, you're going to make more power. But who knows where that is? Every engine is different. So my suggestion on exhausts, downpipes and exhausts is speak to the guys that have done it. And unless you've got a lot of money and a lot of time and 5 hours every Saturday with Seraaj, you're going to go backwards.
Okay. Jody, let's first do Seraaj and then Jody. Let's do Seraaj. So talking about the exhaust there.
Look, the exhaust, like Herman said, on the aspirated cars, it's been done, it's been tested, buy a bolt on, it's done. Obviously, with the turbo cars, exhaust and intake play hand in hand. We've got two cars exactly the same. One set up to, I did barely made 300 with mine. The other one went 328, but it had a vast difference on intakes. Mine had a standard intake, 80 mil exhaust. The other one had a massive intake, 126 mil exhaust. And all was gain was from 7 to 9,000, So it was for the application. So it's specific to what you're busy with, where you need the power and what you're using it for.
Okay, cool. Jody?
With the NA stuff, we do a lot of testing on the dyno because we do mostly drags. And for the NA, you're looking for, that last half a kilowatt to get to from 179 to 180 kilowatts. So we've done 4x1s, we've done 4x1s, 42x1s, we've done straight pipes, we've done them all, and then you just figure out which one is the best out of all of them, because you need the most out of the NA cars. So we do a lot of testing. Back-to-back testing is the only way that you're going to get it right if you're trying to develop yourself.
Okay, cool. Carl,
So
we can just
if I can just, he actually made a perfect statement now. So now I come along, I build a Golf. Why must I go through all that effort if Jody did it before? I'm gonna pick up the phone. Jody, be doing this. Send a branch. Finish. He did the hard work. Jody did it before.
Okay. It makes a lot of sense. Okay, we're just going to play a video quickly, Carl, of Jody. And then Byron is going to start addressing. There's a whole lot of questions that haven't been answered. We just want to address some of those questions. So let's just get into the video quickly.
Here comes now. Jody van Schoor in the right-hand lane. If I'm not mistaken, the fastest guy here today with a 10 point, was it? I think it was a 9.9. I think it was a 9.9 actually. Jody van Schoor. I think it was a 9.9. Yeah.
Is that freezing?
We just got some water delivered here by Paul Simon himself. That's what I'm talking about. That's Service with a smile. Here we go. Next two cars. Here we go. Here goes Service with a smile.
Shifting up. It sounds violent on that shift there.
Violent. Especially from on top here. Across the line, the arch on the left-hand side was a little ajar there. 9.8. 9.8 for Jody van Schoor. The arch on the left of the car was not looking good, but that didn't stop him. Still does a 9.8. Jody van Schoor with a 9.820 to be exact, which makes him the fastest guy here today.
Yo, that's fast. Anyhow, Byron, questions, please. There's a lot of comments we have to go through.
First, a comment over here from Bevan Peterson. Once again, he said, I removed my full exhaust on Turbo Golf and only fitted a 76mm downpipe that it exits behind the front wheel and gained more Newton meters on Herman's dyno. That's from Bevan. And then
who's going to answer that question?
Well, it was on my dyno.
I think that's a statement, not a question.
It's more a statement. Okay, cool. Here's a question though. Is there any formula for exhaust for a turbo car?
There is. The best is no exhaust.
There you go.
I think everybody was not in agreement what he said.
Because I saw three questions since we're busy with comments. Anyone can answer them, but there's three questions that caught my eye. Simply Shads just said spoke about a blue arc management, but there was a question earlier about the best management system.
Yeah, the best management system in South Africa. Yeah, that's
the South African versions. Obviously, there's very expensive systems, Heltech, Motech, whatever fancy tech you want to call it. And yes, they're great, but they're very expensive and out of the reach of most of us. We can't afford them. And I think that if somebody else wants to answer, what is the best management system in your tuners, in your opinion?
If I could, in my opinion, the best local management is the one that gives you the best backup service for your client. There are nice local managements with terrible backup service. So I'll stick with the devil I know. I can pick up the phone. I've got service. I can give my customer a quality answer if he's got a question. But there are better ones, local ones. But if you can't work with the people, what service can you give your client?
So who's the devil that you know? Are you allowed to say that?
Look, I use Heltech and Dictator. So the nicer you get these blue arcs is perfect, but these are a hell of a lot of it. But if I pick up the phone and me as a dealer can't get the service, how can I give that service to my customer? Absolutely. That's where I draw the line.
Okay. And you, what do you say, Zahir?
I use Dictator and I use Power Mods. I switched over to Power Mods about 5 or 6 years ago.
I'm loving
Okay.
it. I don't know if it's backup from guys.
Okay, and you're happy with that setup there as well?
Yeah, I personally run the micro as well.
Perfect. Saki?
Yeah, I think between Dictator and Spatronics, it's the best management's bang for buck at the moment in South Africa. But also, I'm a dealer for both. But it's for me, it's more depends on the application. On some cars, Dictator just works a lot easier, starts easier, runs better than Spatronics. On some of the cars, Spatronics is a lot better than the Dictator for me. So again, it depends on the application.
Okay. Jody?
Local things, I use a lot of Dictators. I tune a lot of the others' power mods. I don't do Spatronics, however. But I do the power mods, the GoTechs, all the older stuff as well. The perfect powers. But we can put the Dictator on just about anything and get it to run half decent. So
Okay.
that's the go-to. When you're in a pickle, you put a Dictator on it and it will go.
Okay. Herman?
Yeah, my thought on that one is it's you need to pick the management system. When it's inside your dashboard mounted, you don't know what is under there. All you feel is the jerk on the car or the surge or it doesn't start in the morning and you phone your tuner. So pick the management system, pick the person that you trust to tune your car. You build a relationship with that person, and whatever management system that person uses, that's the system that you use. So if he's most comfortable with a XYZ system, then that's the system you must put in. If you, and honestly said, every one of us on this page will tune a Dictator. So if you want to jump from tuner to tuner to tuner to tuner, put a Dictator on your car. If you want to put a similar management system, some people will say better, some people worse. If you've got a throttle body car, they'll say a Dictator tunes easier. If you've got a map sensor car, then maybe a Spatronics is easier. But they're all really good. They don't break down anymore. They don't have problems. So ultimately, you need to, if you want Seraaj or you want Jody to tune your car, or Izak or Zyl, you phone him. You say to him, "I want you to do my car. What system must I put?" And that's the system that you put. They're all about the same price. So it's more about the tuner than the actual system on your car, because any one of them, with a person that knows what they're doing. For example, you bring a perfect power to me. I've only ever done one, and I'm going to give it back to you, and you're going to say to me, it's the worst system in the world. It doesn't start, but I missed 4 maps that the thing's got. I didn't even know they were there. You take it to Jason or and RBT, and maybe he gets it right. And then it's the best system that you've had. So it's all to do with your tuner. That's my opinion.
Okay, brilliant. So I've got a question for the viewers out there. If our guests have time, would you want us to continue with the discussion? So let's hear from the viewers out there in the comments. Let's hear yes or no. Byron's going to go in the meantime, because it's all about the time, and I know the time is valuable. Okay.
I think there's a few questions coming up here quickly,
Okay.
Abdul, and all around the management systems.
Ask it again. Ask that.
All right. It's Riyad Adams that says, is it really necessary to run a Dictator 60-2 on turbo SR20, or can a Dictator standard work as good?
Okay, who's going to answer that question? Let's start with anybody. Whoever's going to answer the question. Okay, Saki's in the middle there.
Yeah, I think to me, it depends on if obviously the boost levels, what fuel you're running, that kind of stuff. If SR20 can run with a standard distributor and a standard Dictator, no issues. I would say up until 1.5. I had some of the cars 2-bar boost. As long as your coil setup and the ignition system can keep up. The only reason I would change to a 60-2 from that will be to go to coil packs to have a better ignition system. Other than that, I think the power, the fuel economy, everything is going to be exactly the same.
Agreed.
Okay. Zanier?
Same story there. It all depends what power you want at the end of the day. Everybody's going to tell this one is the way they drive it. But at the end of the day, when you're racing, you're putting a 2-bar on the track. So, you know what? The guys need to be honest. That is what they want to get the best out.
Okay, let's go to Byron's question I had earlier. So now we have all this power, all this torque. Byron, am I right on the right track here with your question? How do you put this power down? Right, let's start with Jody.
Well, for the drag racing scene, for us, luckily enough, we have these good engine management systems. That's quite a bit. So we use quite a bit of the traction control stuff with the turbo cars. So in my car, that thing won't get off the line without traction control. It will just light up the tires and you won't go anywhere. So in that aspect, we use the management systems quite a lot to do torque management to get the thing down the track. Otherwise, also tire pressures help a lot, and suspension. Obviously, I'm not a suspension guy, but you get obviously different coilovers, spring rates, dampening, all those type of things help as well.
Okay, Seraaj.
Look, I think this last 2 years we really had fun on the track where that's concerned, especially with Herman. He's working a lot on doing this, doing that, trying to get him off the line. And with the new management, it helps a lot. I mean, our Corolla now, we went 8-6 with a dictator on a battle. People would ask me, why does this Corolla lay skew on the line? But that's what we had to do to get it to launch, without help. You're tweaking everywhere, watching videos, turning a bit here, turning a bit there. I'm actually really enjoying that aspect of racing.
The suspension tuning now as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Herman, you've got a background in, GTI as well, circuit racing. So how does that? There's a different aspect compared to drag cars again.
Yeah, look, I think the biggest mistake that people make is they think that lower is better. So they just cut springs, drop the car down. But what you then do is you change the whole geometry of the suspension the way it was designed. So you can drop a car a little amount, you can put a 30 mil drop kit or something in, but you can't just slam a car to the floor and expect it to handle. I would say that most of the cars that I drive that even that you've dyno tuned and things like that the people have done suspension upgrades. In my opinion, they're downgrades because the car just bounces. You can't stop going to a corner if there's a little bump in the road because they put a stiff spring in, but they haven't upped the damper or the shock, which controls the spring. Sorry, I don't know if I'm hearing myself here. Again, you need to speak to the people that have done it. Everyone, the thing is, everyone wants to try and reinvent the wheel. You can buy shocks and springs and things like that to make a car handle. If I was going to try and make a front wheel drive Golf pull off the line, the first person I'd walk to is Jody and say to him, how do I do this? I'm not going to, otherwise you're going to spend months and months trying to do your own thing, But he won't share all his information with you, but he will give you something, So, I think you need to speak to the people that know. Go to the racetrack, walk around, look at the shocks and springs, the guys that are using there, and that's the best way to go. But a race car is not a road car. If you've got a bump in the road, you've got a race car suspension, you're going to go right through the stop street because you're not going to stop because your wheels are going to be off the ground while you're trying to brake. So if you've got a road car, harder and lower is not always better. It's going to be dangerous, You're just going to lock up.
Absolutely. Saki, you have a V8 Corolla that's got a lot of power. The car's sideways all the time, but there's still got to be traction. So, talk through it. Talk a little about that. How do you get the traction in that car? It can't push out a huge amount of kilowatts.
Yeah, I'm actually battling with getting off the line. I must go speak to Seraaj or to Jody. But once it's in the drift, it's fine. It's all suspension setup. You have to get your suspension links and everything in order to make it work together to give you more traction. You need to. On my car, it's a live axle, so it's a solid diff. The setup is completely different. Say for example, against the 86 that I'm busy with now. So you need to get all the links and the lengths of the arms and everything right. Your coilover setup, the damping and the rebound on it. It's a lot of work to get that thing to. We spent the whole Saturday, and I think we gained like half a second on a 0 to 60 or 0 to 100 kilometers an hour anyway. And I tried different tires and different that, but it's all got to do with the setup of the suspension.
Okay. Zahir, your suspension knowledge and a little bit about insight on that as well.
Yeah, I started doing 9 inches a couple of years ago, rolling 9 inches into the cars, the drags. Personally, I'm setting up my own one now. Fortunately, we didn't have the time to set up on the track yet. So Seraaj said he's going to help me get some track time so I can play a little bit. But at the moment, the car's going straight and narrow. And yeah, so at the end of the day, full of tire pressures and stuff. And then we got traction control from the newer management to help us along. Same story.
Okay. Byron, you have some comments you want to get through there quickly?
Yes, and of course, earlier on, Abdul, when you asked, should we continue? There was a resounding yes from so many people over here as well. Carlos Smith, Maria Isao, Adam Omar all said yes, please. And Faiz Easy Work said, do a weekly tuner podcast. That's how much the guys want to hear as well about tuning. And there's also a question actually over here as well. This one actually came earlier on in the show. I know we're now going back from suspensions back to software again. I know maybe we need to answer just one more a bit later. TPDZ, are software loaders also tuners? I guess that's the same thing as many people say. Are DJs also musicians?
Okay, Herman, what do you say about that?
The answer is, I'm going to probably pee some people off now, but the answer is yes and no. We've been speaking tonight mainly about standalone management systems. In other words, you put a Toyota 20-valve engine into your shopping trolley and you want it to run. What management system must you run? Then you have to put a management onto this engine to get it to run. And that is, for example, if you buy a Dictator, it's going to cost you 5,000 Rand. Your stock standard Yaris standing outside has got like R1 million management system on it. It's got knock control, idle control, throttle, drive-by-wire. It's got everything. And that's why we haven't spoken about this. This is very difficult to cover all the topics in one evening. But you've got ultimately, if I'm asked the question, what's the best management system? My answer is the standard management system that came on that engine, either making it adjustable via software or making it adjustable via adding a piggyback like a Unichip, so that you can tune the fueling, tune the timing. With the standard ECUs, with a Unichip and software, you can, for example, on a Golf or something, you can change injectors and turbo and you can go crazy on it. And you run the standard management system by changing the tuning parameters within the software. Now you get guys that come out of school, buy a laptop. If you buy you can buy a laptop, a programmer, you can get a file off the internet, you can load it on a car. But that doesn't mean that you know what the air fuel ratio is or what's going to break the engine. So if you want to work with software, you need to work with reputable name brand software, essentially. And that will have a safe tune for your car, because the software is only as good as the person that did it. There are a huge amount. I mean, I do software, Izak does software. I'm sure most of us here will load software on cars. And there are reputable shops around, Tune to Race. A lot of the guys in Cape Town use Matthew van Heerden from Combined Electronics. He's got an ECU expert. He will have a lot of files there, and they share the knowledge. So I will have an M5 on the dyno, and we'll do cam timing on it, and we'll spend the 2 hours on it, and we will get that power out of the engine. And then if Izak needs that file, because he's got a car like that, he doesn't spend all that time because that development has been done. So, like TPI and these guys, they're tuning on board. So ultimately, it's the best, because you've got all of the standard features from the standard management system. And that's also what a Unichip does. It allows us to tune it. But you can't always go like put all of the crazy management, crazy big turbos, nitrous, and everything onto a standard 2J computer box and expect it to control and handle it. It will do it with a Unichip, but the amount of time involved in fitting and tuning is not worth the money. So at that point, you'll get to the point where you just put a Haltech or something onto it, or a Dictator or something like that, because it's ease of tuning. But it's car specific. But in my opinion, software and if you can stick with a standard computer box, you are better off by far than fitting an aftermarket system. You lose a lot of features.
Okay. Any other takers in that answer there? Or I think as Herman sort of covered that question thoroughly?
I think the software tuning has improved a lot in the last 3-4 years. I still don't do software. I send most of the guys, I just give them Herman's number and go off there, because when the guys started their whole copy-paste escapade in Cape Town, they would put a file on the car, and us that do full management would take that car, put it on the dyno, run through the map, and there'll be flaws in them. Back then, it was a big issue to make changes, but now they can actually make those changes, give you what you want. So it's come a lot in the last 5 years, improved a lot.
Okay. Right. Carl, you have a video for us ready there? Can we play the video and then we can kind of wrap up in the next couple of minutes?
I'm going to keep this tires off properly. He goes, sliding. He gets it. You have to back off there a little bit. Immediately, but he put his foot down again. 10.9, 10.9, 11, and 11.1.
Okay, I don't know who won there, but it looks like hopefully the Toyota won there.
Correct.
Okay, who tuned that Toyota?
I did. Zeeland Performance. Buddy of mine, Seraaj, Rodney Rotas. It's one of his cars, actually.
Okay, what engine is in that Toyota?
The 2JZ, we were making about 580 kilowatts.
Holy. Anyhow, let's put another problem. Oh, good run there. Good run. I think the guy in the left hand sold his car and bought a Toyota now with a 2JZ. Okay, Byron, do you have any other comments there before we wrap up for tonight?
I have Bevan Abrahams over here, and it's been, I think, a consensus throughout the show that it's been great. I'm loving this. Looking forward to so many more of this. Well done, gents. And I can echo what he's saying over there as well. We've had a lovely response to the show tonight, and I think what happens is you can make so many more shows out of this one. There's so much to talk about when it comes to tuning, and thank you everybody for commenting and your questions. And Riyad Adams again says thank you. This was extremely good.
Guys, you know what? I had a whole lot of other stuff we wanted to go through still, but you know what? We can have another show and another show and another show. It doesn't matter because there's so much knowledge. And like I said, we want to add value. That's the most important. So maybe just one thing from each tuner, right? I'm not sure what cars the guys have out there, but one thing that they can go home with, do on their cars, and it should make a difference. Very simple stuff. Let's start with Jody again, as you know, he's kind of the most handsome guy here tonight.
I think what I'll start with is maybe something that would help us more than the client is maybe before coming for a dyno session, call your dyno tuner, ask him what needs to be done to the car, or how does the car need to be prepared before bringing the car to the dyno shop. Because often we spend about an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours on the car before we can actually tune them. And that's just fixing issues, flat batteries, tires that don't have air in them, ignition systems that don't work, coils that are dead, those type of things. No fuel in the tank. That's a common one. And it will help us do our job correctly and more quicker if the cars are dyno prepared for us to do our jobs correctly. I think that's important for us,
Okay, so that is, that's very valuable advice, because you guys have a business to run. So you're going to spend an hour preparing the car. You could have done something else. I mean, you could have spent the time with another car, for that matter, or more time on that particular car. Okay, that's very sound advice. Let's go to Zahir. Same question, same. If you want to leave the audience the viewers with one thing to help them or help you guys, what would be your thought?
Same thing as Jody says, guys, please check your cars, make sure they're good. On our side, let us know ahead of time what you actually want from the car, and not send your idea later on once you come back.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, Saki?
I would say just for the guys building cars, speak to us first. Pick your tuner, build a relationship with him, and then and speak to us. See what you want to do, if it's going to work or not. 9 out of 10 times somebody else has tried it already, and you know for a fact it's not going to work. And if you help those guys, you get a lot of phone calls during the day. You give advice on this, advice on that, and the car comes back and the advice you gave him, something completely else, something else was done on the car. And then you tell the guy, but this didn't work. It doesn't work. It's not going to work, and he wants to know why. But they must just listen to the guys, and then we're not trying to help them. We're trying to help them going forward, not going backwards.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Seraaj, your last thoughts quickly before we.
Yeah, I think it's all the same. It's less is more. Do less and do it properly. You know, you don't want to be fiddling here on the car, there on the car. I think this last 2 years we've put something on the drags that we actually started using so little power to do the same times because the tires were nice, the shocks were nice. It's not always the power. So do little, do it properly. You know, don't mess around with inferior stuff. Wait a bit and spend on the proper parts.
Okay. Thank you for that advice, Seraaj. There's a lot of insight and wisdom that goes into all those little blips of information. Herman, just why I left you for last was because you spoke about earlier that you also have HAT training and tuning. Just quickly on the training part, I want you to end up with the training part and also a piece of advice we can give out to the people out there on if they're not interested in driving the car, but possibly wanting to learn about tuning, any other things. What are the better options there? And any of you can answer there as well, because you guys are all in the same boat there.
I think, yes, there was a couple of questions in your last question there, but I've been last year I offered one training seminar. We did 1 or 2 training seminars, and this year I'm leaning. That's why the HAT dynamics is Herman's auto tuning and Herman's auto training. I'm more finding as I'm getting older that there's a big want for knowledge. The people want to learn how to DIY their own thing, and because people aren't sharing. So
now your phone is dead.
Who's my phone? No. So they're not sharing their knowledge. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a training where you can teach a guy to fit the management system, or teach him to tune it, or teach on the dyno. You can choose a dictator or a Spetronics, plug it into my challenge car and tune it on the dyno, So we'll be doing those sort of once a month, and there'll be limited space for them because you need to give each person individual time. Obviously, we spoke to you earlier, Abdullah, about maybe videoing them and then maybe you could post them. I'm not sure. But also, I'm not a genius, I'm just a person wanting to share a little bit of knowledge. So there will be that. You can. I'm doing a little bit in collaboration with Kaz. And they're with Hussein Kader, and he's going to be promoting it and whatever. So watch his Facebook page; he'll be putting it out, and we'll be trying to teach some people. The last thing I want my question. I just wanted to get back to a question I saw twice come up, and I wrote it on my phone. I've been writing questions, and the question was: are all dynos the same? And my advice to anybody is: don't get hung up on the numbers. The numbers are actually irrelevant. Because my dyno will say 110 kilowatts, and Izak's dyno will say 112, and Seraaj's will say 106. It doesn't matter. If you want to compare your car to your friend's car, take them to the same dyno. Other than that, it's a tuning tool. No one asks you how bright your laptop was when you were tuning the car. The kilowatt, you come in with 105, you leave with 110, you gain 5. You can work it out as a percentage, even if you're worried that the number's 200 versus 100, you can see how much you gain. And I had a car on the dyno actually today that it gained 3 kilowatts at 8,000 RPM. So that is the power gain that gets printed on the dyno graph. So you look at the dyno graph and you say, oh, I went from 152 to 155. But look at what happened at 6,000, at 5,000, at 4,000. You gained 20, 30 kilowatt there because the cam timing was wrong. This was wrong. Everyone gets hung up on how much power did it make. We should actually print a graph that you can see the graph. You can see where to shift with the car, and we should leave the power number off the graph. So you can, that's what you gained. That's where the power peak is, where you shift gears. But everyone gets hung up on the power numbers. There's no calibrated dyno that I know of in Cape Town, except for one university. All our dynos we have them if you take it to my dyno, the same car, will make the same power week in, week out. If you take it to Izak's, it's the same. You take it to Zahir's dyno, it's the same. So as long as you use the same dyno and the same tuner and you're comparing apples to apples, don't get hung up on the numbers. Just because a dyno reads less or a dyno reads more doesn't mean that that tuner is worse or better. That's my big takeaway is prep your car for the dyno and don't get hung up on the numbers.
Guys, what an awesome show tonight. Thank you so much. There's been a whole lot of requests for podcasts, weekly or monthly. We'll discuss it at a later stage. I think there is definitely a need for that. Thank you for all the viewers out there on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok, whatever there was. Thanks to the tuners, Byron, my co-host, and mostly thank you for Carl, my co-founder of Straight Outta Cape Town. So, guys, thank you so much for everybody for an interesting 1.5 hours. We're half an hour overdue, but I didn't feel like it because there was some valuable information that was shared tonight. And we want to share more of this information and add value to people's lives every time we have the show on a Wednesday evening. So we'll see you guys next week on Wednesday again at 8 o'clock on Straight Outta Cape Town. And thanks for everything and everybody for checking us out tonight. Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks for having us.
Guys.